It is now my pleasure to invite His Excellency Dennis Francis, President of the General Assembly. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Your Excellencies Cornel, Feruță, and Menissa, Rambally, co-chairs of the Ad Hoc Working Group on Revitalization of the Work of the General Assembly, Excellencies, Under-Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen. As the preamble to the Charter clearly reminds us, the United Nations was founded to foremost, quote, save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, unquote. While the purview in the maintenance of global peace and security falls primarily with the Security Council, Chapter 4 of the Charter does also provide for a vital role for the General Assembly. Above all, it is well established that the General Assembly is the principal deliberative policymaking and the most representative organ of this great organization. It is also a global parliament of humanity with unparalleled inclusivity and universal representation of all 193 member states of the United Nations. In addition to member states, multiple observers and stakeholders immensely contribute to the work of the Assembly to implement the more than 170 items on its agenda every year, reinforcing our decision-making processes. Moreover, General Assembly resolutions, though not legally binding, represent the preponderant and well-considered view of the wider UN membership on a specific issue, as we have recently seen in the intricate cases of conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. On many occasions, I have therefore reminded the skeptics that resolutions of this august assembly carry what some term determinative power and a moral authority, making their implementation so important. Often garnering the support of most of the member states, this Assembly's resolutions allow the global community to be seen as speaking with a collective voice, carrying profound weight. Let us recall, for instance, that the Universal Declaration on Human Rights was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948 as a General Assembly resolution, that the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in 2015 was a General Assembly resolution, and that it was the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 96, entitled The Crime of Genocide, by which the Assembly affirmed that genocide is a crime under international law. I challenge anyone who dares minimize the role and authority of this august assembly, as I do firmly believe that not only does its convening power and global norm-setting comparative advantage matter, but as a matter of fact, they are compelling. Excellencies, over the past 2 years in particular, it is unfortunate that the Security Council's internal deadlock continues to undermine the Council's functionality and, to a not insignificant degree, the image of the United Nations as a whole. As a result, this has given more meaning to the Assembly's residual role on matters of peace and security under the UN Charter. This point was also well underscored during the morning dialogue that I convened last week. As the Assembly, we cannot sit idle when so much is at stake, and when especially the protection of innocent civilian lives is being shoved to the backside, and when civilian death toll in the raging conflicts such as in Gaza continue to challenge our human sensibility and conscience. I therefore draw comfort in the fact that during its resumed 11th emergency special session, the General Assembly has adopted 6 resolutions following the Russian Federation's aggression against Ukraine in February 2022, calling for the immediate withdrawal of all Russian forces, among other things. The Security Council's paralysis, evidenced by its failure to adopt a single resolution following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, stands in stark contrast to the accomplishments of the Assembly and is thus a real drag on the good reputation of our organization. Similarly, following the escalation of violence in the Middle East since 7 October 2023 and the ensuing humanitarian crisis in Gaza, triggered by Israel's action, the General Assembly adopted 2 resolutions during its resumed 10th emergency special session. These important resolutions call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, the establishment of humanitarian access corridors, and the release of all hostages. Additionally, they urge all parties to comply with international law. While I welcome the Security Council's latest resolution, adopted this week, as a commendable step in the right direction, this breakthrough comes after months of division, preventing agreement on a crucial resolution to end the misery in the Gaza Strip. Rest assured that, given the situations in Gaza and Ukraine, given that the situations in Gaza and Ukraine persist, I stand ready to reconvene these emergency special sessions at the request of any member state or group of states. Excellencies, it is worth noting that the relationship between the General Assembly and the Security Council has continued to evolve, particularly in recent years. Since the General Assembly adopted the veto initiative, mandating the President of the General Assembly to convene a formal meeting within 10 days whenever a veto is cast by a permanent member of the Security Council, the Assembly has convened every time a resolution or an amendment has been vetoed in the Council. Many agree that the veto initiative has enhanced transparency and accountability of the Security Council for its actions on behalf of the General Assembly. I would, however, welcome any inputs on how to further improve on this initiative. As you may be aware, an item on use of the veto has been incorporated on the agenda of the Assembly, and its annual debate in this session will be held on 23rd of April. In January, my presidency also broke new positive ground when I convened an informal meeting of the General Assembly in cooperation with the Permanent Mission of the United Kingdom, which allowed the wider UN membership to express their views on the work of the Council in the previous year as part of the drafting of the Council's annual report. I am much encouraged and indeed gratified to note that this successful process was the result of a recommendation from the informal morning GAIAP dialogues. As encouraged by the Assembly's revitalization process, I will continue to convene these fruitful informal dialogues, and I encourage all of you to make time in your very busy schedules to honor my invitation to participate in these important, candid exchanges. I look forward to convening the debate of the General Assembly on the upcoming Security Council report later this year. I hope the continuation of the practice of such consultations will advance meaningful collaboration between these two important principal organs of the United Nations. In the meantime, the Peacebuilding Commission stands as one other area for further cooperation, considering its role as an advisory body to the General Assembly. I am eager to see this envisioned role of the Commission fully explored, including through regular interactions with its chair, its focal point of the General Assembly, and its focal point, and its wider membership. On multiple occasions and platforms, as President of the General Assembly, I have also endeavored to remain active in publicizing the work of this Assembly, including promoting its increased role and authority in matters of peace and security. I wish to highlight that during my official visits to countries worldwide, the primary question from civil society and other global citizens on the ground predominantly concern peace and security matters and the urgency of reform of the Security Council. It is for that reason that last week I also convened a morning GAIAB dialogue on strengthening the Assembly's role in conflict prevention within its established mandates. I was greatly encouraged by the robust and active discussions among the permanent representatives participating in the recent morning dialogue, which demonstrated the strong interest and commitment of member states on this critical issue. Also, emanating from this revitalization process, I am happy to report that my office is working on the digital handbook on past practices, data, and recommendations for the fulfillment of the functions and powers of the General Assembly in this area, to be left behind as a quick reference, bibliographical resource, including for future presidents of the General Assembly. I hope the handbook will be an easily accessible and user-friendly resource, clearly explaining the authority and role of the General Assembly in matters of international peace and security. Over the past few months, my office has been consulting with member states, as well as UN Secretariat and other stakeholders in this project, to ensure the widest possible support to the initiative. I appeal to member states to consider joining those who have already pledged in providing the token financial support needed for this project. I take this opportunity to extend my sincere gratitude to Portugal for already providing a contribution, and I encourage all member states to follow this lead. My office, is keen to engage with all member states for the successful implementation of the project and stands ready to provide any further information as required. Excellencies, as I conclude, let me underscore that in this daunting hour of heightened geopolitical tensions, turmoil, and anguish in many parts of the world, the maintenance of international peace and security has taken an even central dimension and must remain our paramount collective mission as the quintessential purpose for the founding of this great organization. And the General Assembly must continue to play its vital role in fulfilling that purpose. Rest assured that, as President of the General Assembly, I remain steadfast in my commitment to render leadership to this end. Halfway in my mandate, it would be remiss on my part not to mention that for the President of the General Assembly to meaningfully render much-needed leadership, this vitalization process must also exhaustively identify and address all prevailing operational impediments. My office and I stand ready to assist the member states and co-chairs in this regard. I thank you.
I thank the President of the General Assembly. Excellency, your presence and participation here today is sincerely welcome and appreciated. Thank you.